What's going on, everybody? This is your boy, your software boy, Coach Rich, with two H's, back again with another video. And today, we're talking about Introduction to the Syllabus, Try 100. You ready to get cooking? Let's go. So we already discussed that in the IT industry, there are a broad number of careers in which you can get into. But here specifically in the Triad Lab, I'm going to teach you how to be a software engineer. Now, what is a software engineer? I bought some notes today because this is pretty hefty. A software engineer is a professional who designs, develops, tests, and maintains security applications and computer systems. They use engineering principles and programming languages to create solutions for users. Software engineers may work on a variety of projects, including operating systems, business applications, computer games, network control systems, and middleware. Software engineers often work in teams, collaborating with other stakeholders to gather user feedback and determine requirements. They may also direct other team members, such as software developers, quality assurance analysis, and testers. Software engineers need to have a combination of skills, including analytical thinking, project management, collaboration, and knowledge of programming languages. I ain't gonna lie, that was a lot. It was very intimidating. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna pluck this, we're gonna throw this to the side. Because the one thing that I always tell everybody about a software engineer, it's about taking the big picture and chopping it up into chunks. Think about this as a Thanksgiving feast. You walk into Thanksgiving and you see all these spreads. You see a turkey, you might see a ham, you might see stuffing, biscuits, greens, and you name it. But you don't think about how the person who prepared this had it prepared. They might have made the turkey the day before. They might have made the stuffing right before you got there. They might have made the greens. They might be in a crock pot. They might be sitting there for a while. The point is, you see this big picture and you chop it down and you see a big picture which comes together. Now, with a software engineer, the one thing that you need to understand is the life of us and what we do. The main thing we do, we're gonna sit behind a desk. Now, I ain't gonna lie. Now, if you're lazy, you might like that. But however, it still takes a toll on your body. In this generation today, we have sit-stand desks where you can sit down, you can do some work, for some time. You can stand up, you can do some work for some time. I also recommend like a yoga ball or like a medicine ball that you can sit on and still engage your core. That's very helpful. The other thing that you're going to need is you're going to need to be technical with people who aren't technical. Unfortunately, everyone's not technical, but it's your job to create their vision. And creating that vision means taking what they say to you and regurgitating out something that's more technical. That's just like if I go to a feast and I say I want some bacon, macaroni, and cheese. Well, yeah, it's a thing, but it's a thing now until it became a thing. Got to keep that in mind being a software engineer. You are the creator of the problems and the solutions. Now, here in the Triad Lab, again, we are focusing on software engineering, and we have a bevy of different topics that we're going to get into. The main stack that we're going to use here is called a Meven stack, MEVN. Now, we'll get into what those terms mean just a little bit later into this video, but we're going to start with the bare bones. And the bare bones into the Triad Lab is JavaScript. Now, JavaScript is one of the most widely used programming languages in web browsers. I mean, I can't even think about another programming language that's used in the browser more than JavaScript. And it's very important that we know JavaScript. I honestly think that JavaScript is a very, very, very easy language to learn, and it's very powerful. So we're going to start with some JavaScript, and we're just going to lead it into some HTML. Now, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. I always get choked up on that. Now, HTML is a very tag-based language where we're going to need it because we're going to need some HTML for some templates and some other things that we're going to use for our web applications. We'll get more into these languages more in other videos, but we just need to know right now what's the overview of things. One of the other things that we're going to use, you guessed it, we're going to use our front-end skills, our back-end skills, and our middleware skills, which comes into our stack, our Meven stack. So let's start with that. So the M stands for Mongo. Mongo database. Think about a database as like your brain. You have to think about things. You have to process things. You have to recall things. That's exactly what a database is. And Mongo is a specific database that has grown to be my favorite over time, where it's a document database where with our project that we're going to be creating, it's going to fit in perfectly. And I'm excited to teach you guys this database. We have other databases such as a relational database, a non-relational database. We'll get into more of those into our database video, but that's going to be the database that we use here in the Triad Lab. The E stands for Express. Express is our middleware. Our middleware is going to bridge our front end with our back end, kind of connect them together. We need, of course, middleware. Everyone needs middleware. It sends our requests. It receives our responses. We'll get into all those things in another video. But I think Express really molds in well with our front end framework that we're going to use, which I'm going to get to in 1 second, and our back end framework, which we're going to use, which I'll get into after our front end. Which actually our front end is very important. Well, it is very important, but that's not what the V stands for. The V stands for Vue.js. Vue.js is one of the greatest programming language frameworks in the front end, in my opinion, that has ever come out. Now, you have other ones. You have Angular, you have React, which is also powerful. Everyone's going to have their own opinion. But for me and for the Triad Lab, we're going to specifically focus on Vue.js. I think Vue.js is really easy to learn. The componentizing and all the lifecycle hooks that we're going to engage in really makes Vue.js really streamlined and really easy to learn, especially coupling it with Java or JavaScript and Express. Now the N, last but not least, Node.js. Now, for our backend developers, Node.js to me is one of the greatest upcoming backend languages that you can ever use. There are also a lot of different backend languages. Backend languages have been out for years. Like one of the popular ones is Java, which is not to be confused with JavaScript. They are completely different. But however, Node is very, very, very popular in this industry, and it is strong. It is really, really strong. Java is just a little bit more of a learning curve that you need than a Node. Node is written very similar to how JavaScript is written, so you don't really have to reprogram your brain to learn Node as opposed to going for JavaScript, because sometimes in different applications you have to write one language in the front, you have to completely write another language in the back. With this Maven stack, everything is going to be very seamless. Everything will be very seamless. Now, with that, have that been said, we're also going to learn some other things that make you great as being a software engineer, like AWS. Now, AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. Now, of course, that costs money. We ain't gonna lie. But Amazon Web Services has a bevy of different environments and a bevy of different services in which you can levy to be for your application. Whether it might be for you to deploy your applications easier, whether it might be for you to write easier code or an environment to write easier code in, AWS has a service that's going to work out for you. Now, getting a cert in AWS is also something we're going to do here in-house in the Triad Lab. Stay tuned. Also, one of the things that we're going to learn, it's very important, that's not really taught a lot in these institutions, is Docker. Think about Docker as like a storage unit. You have this little compartment where you put things in that you need, and you can take this and you can put it wherever you needed to put it. Think about like a house. You're moving from your house and you want to store your items. What you going to do? You're going to put it in storage, and wherever you need to go, you're going to retrieve your items from storage, and your house is going to look very similar to the things that you packed up in. That's Docker. Historically, there has been issues with deploying your application on different systems, whether it be Mac, Linux, Windows, because everything has different operating systems and different things that it uses. And Docker just simplifies that and makes everything so much easier. We're going to learn some Docker. One other things we're going to learn, command line interface that intertwines with Docker for a reason of you might not always have an interface to use when you have to do things. So you know what you got to use? Yeah, that black box that goes just like that. Yeah. The command line interface is so powerful. We got to learn it. It's only right that we learn it. We have to be fluid in a command line interface, not necessarily use it all of the time. Now, I do know some people who use it all the time. Now, I don't know how they do that. I ain't doing that. But however, we need to know some powerful commands and things that's going to get us above that hump. Now, one thing I didn't really touch on that we got to go back towards was the front end, which is CSS, which stands for Cascade and Style Sheets. I had to get that one out, which is basically like makeup. Everything has to be pretty in its own way. We have to make sure that we know how to use CSS when it comes to the front end because, again, we all want to see something that's attractive to us, and we need to make sure that's attractive to the user. And also going on with JavaScript is the document object modeling tree, which is very important to learn. Now that's like, think about like a family tree. You have this big tree. You got, mom, dad at the top. You got your siblings, whether annoying or not. In the middle, you got, your children after that. That's exactly how the document object modeling tree works and how you traverse it. And we're going to learn how to do the DOM tree. DOM is short, for, of course, for document object modeling. I'm sorry, I can't get that out. That's tough. Now, the one thing I will also tell you about software engineering, there are going to be a bevy of acronyms. Like, if you don't know what an acronym is, an acronym is letters, and each letter stands for something. Now, I can't give you all the acronyms, but if you don't know, you can always Google things. But however, acronyms are very, 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 very popular in software engineering. Now, this is a good one. Y'all know ChatGPT, right? I know you guys know ChatGPT. ChatGPT has been, it's not necessarily new, but it's becoming more used in today's society. And we're not going to necessarily use ChatGPT, but we're going to use it to leverage some things sometimes. I'm going to get you exposed to some ChatGPT. ChatGPT does write code, but we're not going to use it to write our code because we need to know how to write our own code because we can't have that taking our jobs. You know what I'm saying? We don't want that. So we're going to know how to use it for when we need it, but how to ignore it for when we don't need it. Here, try it. Now, the other thing that we're going to actually use, we're going to start using other things that work in the professional system, Agile. Agile development is something that is used in 99% of the industry. Agile development basically is when you have a team that actually does things, and you have what's called sprints. And we'll get into these terms a little bit later, but you need to be a little bit agile in flexing how you do your work. And this is where Agile comes in at. Sometimes you got to gather requirements, you got to design things, you got to develop things, you have to test things, you have to deploy things, you have to document things. All these things is what's called Agile development. And I'm going to teach you what Agile development is. And we're going to actually use our Agile development in our project here in the TriLab. Now, using the Agile development, we're going to also use these two twins that I call twins. They are Atlassian tools. It's called Confluence and Jira. Now, Confluence is like a document system where you can just keep track of historical things, whether it might be, you keep track of the fact that you need to, your system needs to be deployed on X amount of time or this time of day, whether it be that you're about to leave the project and you want to leave everybody else with some KT, which stands for knowledge transfer. Everything is documented on Confluence. And that helps for people like me. Whereas though I can come in as a newbie and I can read your Confluence page and I can get all the information that I need to be successful in this project and to be a main contributor. We're definitely going to use Confluence for our project. And a twin to this is called Jira. Jira is a ticketing system where you just keep track of the work that you have done. Again, software engineers is big pie, but when you chop it down with tickets. And when you chop it down with tickets, you just keep track of the smaller details that's in that ticket. Like you might have a user who might say, I want a green button right here in the upper corner. Well, you make a ticket that says, hey, put a green button in the upper corner. And once that green button is in the upper corner, you close this ticket out. Now we're keeping track of our work. This is how professionals keep track of what you're doing and what's coming up in the pipeline. These are real things that you're going to need in your career. Now, the one thing that is really not taught that should be taught is GitLab. GitLab is a very, 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 very pivotal tool for all industries. It is a source control management where you write all the source code, you got your head down, you write all the source code, but where does it be stored? How do you manage it? GitLab. There's a twin that's called GitHub, which is completely separate from each other. I have never used GitHub, so I'm here to teach you GitLab, but they have the same principles. It's a way to manage your source code, how to make sure that you're not putting any garbage in your main branch, which is going to hold your application, which is how you have what's called peer reviews, which, is the only thing better than 2 eyes is 4. Only thing better than 4 eyes is 6. So you have all these people who contribute to your peer review who can help you find things that you might have missed. That is very pivotal in the industry. Now, tribes, what do we need? You guessed it. We need you. We need you. The one thing not only that we need you, we need your patience. Patience in being a software engineer is very vital. There will be times where you want to be very frustrated for the things that you may not be able to solve, because remember, the solution is your job. But guess what the best reward is? Figuring it out. You guessed it. Y'all good. Figuring it out. There has been so many times in my career where I just did not know. And when I knew, drop confetti. Because it's the best thing in the whole world to know that you have figured out a solution. And the only thing that's better than that is that you have learned from what you went through. And you know what you do? Put it on Confluence. So that way somebody who come through who might experience that, you documented it, so now they know what to do. You see how everything goes together? Now, of course, you're going to need a laptop. You're going to need a desktop, whatever you may need that's going to suit your needs. I have both Windows and Mac. For the most of my videos that I make, it's going to be mainly in Mac, but I also have my Windows if you have any questions. I will likely start out every video with using or telling you guys what device I'm going to use. That way, if you want to, be exactly what I'm doing, seeing, or whether you just want to ask me some questions on your other device, that's fine. I'm fluent in both. We're going to need some note taking, whether it's going to be in your iPad, your device that you're using, writing notes down, because some people still do that. Me. No, I do. I ain't gonna lie, I do. But we definitely gonna need to take some notes down because we might have to refer to some things a little bit later. All right, triads. This is the introduction to the syllabus. Again, we're gonna have some cert preparations coming up. And if you want your cert, you will watch these videos because we're gonna get our certs together. All right, triads. The next video is called 101 Terms and Definitions. We will need these terms and definitions so we know how to move forward with the rest of our studies and knowing what these terminologies mean. And once we know what these terminologies mean, we can process this with our database, aka our brain. You ready to get cooking?